This is something that we do each week at 9:30. We ask you to ask some questions, certainly share the video. This is all about business, to those business owners or people in business that want to know how to run their businesses better, get you guys to a different level. Last week we talked a lot about your BHAG and your sandbox, where you want to play. This week we're going to talk about brand promise. We're going to talk about your elevator pitch, and we're going to get into the smaller time horizons, the year, the annual plan, and also the 90-day outlook. So we want to spend some time on that. So again, Tuesdays with Tom. My name is Tom Hamp. I'm with AdvoCoach of Mid-Michigan. Been doing this for about 7 years, and we just want to give you as much information on running your business as possible. So let's start out. Let's have a question for you, and we're going to talk a little bit about your elevator pitch today, and that is to really talk about when you go out into the field, whether you're networking or maybe you're at a soccer game watching your kids or just out socially, and somebody asks you, "Hey Tom, what do you do?" Do you have a real good answer, or do you hem and haw about, well, we do this or we do that, and is it not the same every time? And so one of the things we help you concentrate on in the strategic plan is what we call the elevator pitch. What your elevator pitch should do, it should invite conversation or additional conversation. It's just not an ad. You want to have or make sure that your elevator pitch is to a certain point, that we want to make sure that you are talking about the things in your business that matter to potential clients, whether it's consumers or on a commercial aspect. We want to make sure that, you know, when we deliver our elevator pitch, we can continue to talk about it. It's almost to the point where when you get done with your elevator pitch, people say, "Tell me more." So that's something that has to be kind of brainstormed within your company. You want to certainly write it down so that you know what that's, what it is, and then we can help refine that, or you want to refine that elevator pitch. So again, you know that your elevator pitch is succinct, is to the point, and again, invites continued conversation. Now that's just you. How do you get that down to the rest of your organization? And that's key as well, is that if you have an organization, you want people, and again, this term may be overused, but you want them singing out of the same hymnal, right? So we want to create an elevator pitch that everybody understands and really internalizes, so that when somebody asks them about what they do in your organization, they understand as well. So again, huge thing. People kind of slough it off as this thing that, when somebody asks me what to do, or I get up in front of a networking group and those types of things, that I can quickly create one. But really, it's extremely important to your company to have a good elevator pitch that's kind of documented, published, so that people can really understand it, internalize it. And you may want to even do some training on it. Make it fun, put it out there, let people know this is the way you want your company, presented out in the public. We don't want to sound robotic, but we do want to make sure that it's standard across our business. So elevator pitch, extremely important. Let's talk a little bit about brand promise. Brand promise is one of those things that's kind of another one of those things that's kind of put off on the side, that people don't really understand what it means. And what it means, and I'll go back to a story that was in E-Myth that Michael Gerber kind of alluded to. He used the example of going into, he was out of town, and he visited this location many times, but it's out of the area that he lived in, and it was a barbershop. And when he went into the barbershop, the first time was an amazing experience. And what happened here was that he went in for a haircut. They offered him coffee, a paper. They also offered him kind of a paper that he could read. They washed his hair. They cut his hair. They blew dry his hair. I mean, everything was a tremendous experience. So fast forward a couple months later, when he has to get his hair cut again, it was still a good experience, but some things were missing. This time they didn't offer him coffee, and they didn't wash his hair, but the haircut itself was good. They didn't necessarily, shave his face or that type of thing. It just wasn't the same. Fast forward another couple months, again, another good haircut, but the experience was different. So I say all that to say this is that your brand promise needs to be exactly the same every time you bring a client aboard. So we want to make sure that when you put your brand promise out there, and that could be true today, we could start today and say today, going forward, our brand promise is A, B, and C, but just remember, it's not A, B, and C sometimes, it's A, B, and C every single time, because it's called a brand promise. This is the promise that we have to all of our clients and customers. So when you're putting that together, you want to make sure, one, that you can commit to it long term and every time, but you also want to make sure that your company and your people can commit to it. Because the moment I have a different experience in dealing with your company and the services and products that you provide, the moment that it creeps into my mind that, you know what, this isn't the same as I was treated the last time. And again, you could all provide good service, but you don't want to have that creep into, you know what, it's just different every time we call that particular place, or they do a service, or we ask them to do a service. And especially if you're in a high turnover, you want to make sure that you're training the people in your organization to deliver that brand promise each and every time. So we've covered both the elevator pitch today and the brand promise. It takes a little bit of time. Don't take those things for granted. It's in the strategic plan, and we want to make sure that you're concentrating on those two areas, even though for some people you might think that's a throwaway. So just a reminder, if you're tuning in a little bit late today, this is called Tuesdays with Tom. We do this every Tuesday at 9:30. We want to bring business expertise to business owners, people in business, to discuss things going on, maybe some stuck points, some challenges that you have. We ask that you ask questions online. Certainly go ahead and pop those questions into your Facebook there, and we'll answer those as we get to them. If you're viewing this offline, certainly, ask those questions to us. We'll get that on our Facebook, and we'll be able to get you back the answer to your question. And also to share this video to those that you think could use the expertise that's talked about on this video, because we get the best quality and the best substance from this broadcast because you ask good questions. So let's move into the next couple of time horizons on the strategic plan. We talked last week a little bit about the 3 to 5 year, and that's a little bit far out, and you know what, it's probably not going to be as accurate as these closer time horizons. So the first one we'll talk about is the annual time horizon. This is the next 12 months, or a lot of cases, if I'm in the second part of the year, what I'll do is I'll elongate that and say, if we're in September, I'll say let's do the next 15 months and plan accordingly. So it's broken up into 3 areas. First part is the goals, second part is the priorities, and the third part is the KPIs, or the key performance indicator. So we really want to understand what each one of those are. So there's a little bit redundant when we go from the annual to the 90-day, but I'll explain the differences here in a second. So let's talk about the goals. That's usually up at the top, and that's usually something that we're trying to achieve numerically. So we want to use SMART goals, and what those are, there's well-defined goals that make sense, that are doable. We want to make sure that they're attainable, but we want you to stretch a little bit too. So those particular goals could be just about anything based on your business, and we want to make sure we're not putting 20 down, but really the 3 to 5 goals that we're going to track, and we want to monitor to make sure that we're going in the right direction, that we're taking your company in the right direction. So for example, those could be revenue, inventory turns, profit, those types of things that you're probably used to when you're in business. So again, put those things on your strategic plan, in the annual plan, that you can attain within reason, but again, we're asking you to stretch here to put those things on your strategic plan so that we can get some traction and motivation going forward. The second area of this annual goals is what we call the priorities. Same type of thing here. We're not looking for the 20 priorities because we know that everything's important, but we want to know the most important things in your business for the next year. So whether that's adding a new branch, if you're maybe you're a landscaper and going to add a new crew and equipment, There's a number of different things, but what are the top 5 things in your business that you're going to make sure that you do so that we can move your business forward? And some examples could be, again, adding personnel, maybe offering a new product or service, just to name a few. So again, what's the top priorities? This is important because these are the top priorities for the entire business. That doesn't mean that in the different divisions you have, in the different areas, that you couldn't have priorities for them as well, but they should also be connected to the priorities of the business. This could be a situation to where you set your staff people down and talk about what are the priorities of the business. It's very well to have a company forum to where you can get this information about what needs to change. Maybe you're a little bit separated from the day-to-day activities. Get input from your key people. Maybe it's an employee survey that you put out. It's you could use the area or the app SurveyMonkey just to do a quick survey and get some analytics about what's going on in your own company. But extremely important to understand what people are seeing out there, what opportunities you can capture, and make sure that you capture that and then monitor it as well. And then the third piece, and not to say it's not as important, but the third piece is what we call the key performance indicators. And again, spending a little bit of time on this is important. There's 3 types of indicators. 2 types of indicators. There's leading indicators and there's lagging indicators. So just explain just a moment on the differences. So let's just take the situation as someone's on a diet. Typically when you're on a diet, a lagging indicator would be something like jumping on the scale at the end of a certain day or a certain week or even the month or quarter to find out how you're doing. It's always at the end, right? So maybe we've gained 5 pounds, maybe we've lost 10 pounds, regardless, whatever it is, that's a lagging indicator. Everything's done, we jump on a scale, we get the reading. So that's a lot like sales at the end of a quarter, inventory turns, revenue generated, whatever the case is, lagging indicator. So let's talk about leading indicators. So in a diet, leading indicators would be things like caloric intake, portion control, the amount of liquid or water you're drinking, exercise, and certainly the amount of sleep that you're getting. So that I've given you 5 different type of leading indicators. And the reason we concentrate on those is that we want to make sure in the middle or while we're going through this process that we monitor and track these so that if something's off, maybe we're not doing the portion control, maybe we're not getting enough exercise, well then we have a chance in the middle of this process, this time horizon, to change. We don't have to wait to the end of the year to change those types of things. So for our strategic plan, for the AdvoCoach strategic plan, we want to make sure that we're on top of things so we can change course, pivot if we need to. So that's why leading indicators are extremely important. So leading indicators in business would be something like number of leads generated, number of leads converted to appointments, the amount of, maybe it's the accounts receivable, the amounts of accounts receivable that are, collected or underneath 90 days or 120 days. Or there's a number of different types of key performance indicators. And again, we're not just throwing up numbers to throw up numbers. We want to make sure they're valid and we understand that. So that's just a little explanation on the time horizon, annual time horizon. Again, just to recap, we have up top our goals for the next 12 months or so. We have the top 5 priorities. Remember, everything's important, but what's the most important? And then our key performance indicators. I just want to check the group today. I want to thank Jamie Taylor joined us today. And we also have a question. It says, can you help facilitate a focus group or survey of a team? And that's a good question because yes, we can do that because a lot of times when we start that process, we get stuck. How do we do that? How do we get everybody together? And that's what we do here at AdvoCoach, is that we've done a number of different types of these groups or focus groups or leading a team of either a nonprofit, a business, those types of things. And so we get everybody in a room, and typically a good group, anywhere between 7 to 11 for your company, that's good. If you have less, that's not a big deal. But we try to limit it on the high end because I've done groups of 20, and what happens is that certainly everybody has their opinion, but they also want us wordsmith so it's exactly right, and we're really worried about or concerned about getting concepts down. We want to make sure that we get the ideas down. We can wordsmith it later, but when you have a lot of personalities in the room and it gets to be 15, 18, 20, it can certainly elongate the process. And again, not to say that that hasn't worked, there are exceptions, but the ideal 7 to 11 kind of participants really work well in this environment. So again, having everybody, having good input. I know somebody had asked me in one of my recent client meetings, who should be involved in preparing this or being on this strategic planning committee or brainstorming committee. And it's really key people around your organization. That's not to say that it has to be the main staff. You certainly want to be able to manage, if you don't invite some of your high-level staff to the meetings and brainstorming issues, you certainly want to explain why or why not. But what we try to do is get real good insight. Maybe there's been somebody that's been at your place of employment for a very long time, and they've had insight, but maybe they're not high up in the organization. We want to make sure that we include them because they may have some insight that we may have missed, or that they just come from a different area of the business. So just a reminder, what you're looking at or what you're listening to today is Tuesdays with Tom. My name's Tom Hamp, and I'm a business coach with AdvoCoach up in Michigan. We want to make sure that we're handling business issues, challenges, questions for business owners, people in business. We want to make sure that we answer your questions not only live, but certainly if you have questions and you're viewing this video later, that you ask questions and we'll get those answers back to you. And we want to make sure that you share this video with others in the community, with those that that might be experiencing some issues when they're growing their business, and you hear them maybe at a dinner party or an event say, you know what, I can't get my arms around this or this particular area, and we want to help them with that. So this is a great forum to do that without a lot of pressure. So again, every Tuesday, Tuesdays with Tom, and certainly remember to share it. So let's go into the last time horizon, and that is really our 90-day. We don't go any shorter on the strategic plan with our time horizons. We really try to concentrate on the next 90 days, and typically that's your quarter. We do try to stay along the calendar quarter. That's what everybody's doing, and it seems smart to do that. But maybe we've caught you in the middle of a quarter. That's okay. We can do one quarter at 4 or 5 months, and then do a quarterly after that. So one of the things here to remember is it's really the same type of format as the annual plan. It's divided into 3 areas: the goals, the priorities, and then of course the key performance indicators. Now many of these specific topics could be different. We could be concentrating on something that's very short term, or we just take a piece of our annual plan or a 3 to 5 plan and we move it into the 90-day goals and priorities so that we can just grab a chunk of it so that it's not so overwhelming. So one of the common things that happens when we're sitting down, discussing the strategic plan is sometimes it can get overwhelming. These projects or these changes in your business or these new things that you want to try, they can become huge and it's paralyzing at times. Where do I start? So this is a great place to chunk things up. What can we get done on that annual plan or that 3 to 5 year plan in this next 90 days that starts the process, getting us baby steps toward the ultimate goal? So that's what really the 90 days are. And again, I say it's not 20 goals and priorities, it's 3 to 5. And we'll start at the top. Once again, what's the goals or the highest goals that we want to represent in the next 90 days? Again, those examples could be the same as the annual plan, and that could be revenue, that could be inventory turns, that could be getting your accounts receivable down, a number of different things in your particular business that's important to you. What are the goals for doing that? I have a nonprofit that I coach, and one of the things is the number of, the amount of clients that are seeing, the amount of people that donate in a particular month's time frame. It's important to put those down so that we can see how well we're doing and something to shoot for that organization. So again, 3 to 5 highest goals that you are trying to reach, and again, asking you to stretch. We'll talk in a little bit about looking back at the previous maybe year or quarter, and then we can compare and contrast. We wanted to say hi to Jack Miller this morning. Thanks for joining us, Jack. We appreciate you being here today. So that's for your next 90 days, your highest 5 goals. And now we move into the priorities. And this particular area changes just a little. It's still about the most important things in your business. What's the highest 5 priorities you have going in the next 90 days? But it also has this added feature, and that is we put down who's responsible for that particular priority and then when it's going to be done in that particular quarter. So here's the rub on that, is that it now becomes an accountability piece. If we put a person's name in the box, as well as the day that they're going to get it done in that particular 90 days, they can see that, because eventually we'll put this strategic plan up on the wall so that everybody can see that. So again, it becomes an accountability piece, kind of a management piece of this person's responsible. Now, they're not responsible for the whole thing. They might not be responsible for the whole thing. What happens is that we try to say that they are ultimately answerable for that. So when an owner or a high-level staff person comes to them, they're ultimately going to give the answer. That doesn't mean they can't form a committee or a task force or group to help them handle that, and that's suggested, because we don't want all this responsibility to fall on one person's shoulder. What we really want to do is kind of spread out the work activity. So again, they are ultimately responsible, almost the chair of the committee, if you will, but they're not doing everything underneath that particular priority. So again, those things have changed. The 3 to 5 priorities, highest priorities, who's responsible, and by what day in the quarter that it's going to be accomplished. And then the last, or the third area, again, is the key performance indicators. We want to keep this, and this is where it's extremely important, these leading indicators. If something comes up that's a red flag or a challenge, we can handle it at that time. So it becomes extremely important that if, 3 weeks into the quarter, that if things aren't going the way we thought, we pull everybody in and go, okay, what's the challenge? What can we do? How can we fix that? What tweaks do we have to do? Let's take the good parts and move forward. Let's take the bad parts out of it. Again, until, like the lagging indicator, you'd have to wait till the quarter was over to try to get that reading. So extremely important going forward. So those are our things that we wanted to talk about today. The brand promise, the elevator pitch, don't take those things for granted, extremely important. Our annual plan, which remember involves the goals, the highest priorities, and your key performance indicators, and then of course the quarterly or 90-day time horizon, which again includes your goals, your highest priorities within that 90 days, and your key performance indicators. So that about wraps it up. Again, today what you were looking at, again, was Tuesdays with Tom. We do this at 9:30 every Tuesday, Facebook Live. Love to have you share it. If you're looking at this video or viewing it and it's not live, certainly continue to ask questions. We'll get back to you. We try to do this every Tuesday for those business owners or those people in business that have challenges, questions to get their business to the next level. We thank you very much for being with us today. We hope to see you down the road. Keep looking for those posts about the topics that we're going to do next week. We're going to talk a little about celebrating those wins in your business when you've achieved the goals, the priorities, whether that's 90-day goals or whether that's annual goals, and then also look at some of the benchmarking that we do and how that impacts the strategic plan and how you operate the strategic plan. So again, my name is Tom Hamp. I'm a business coach with AdvoCoach of Mid-Michigan. Thank you for joining us today, and have a great rest of your week.